Welcome to the video playthrough of my level blockout with the placeholder name Project Simmons. My experience with level building up to this project had been first-person shooter maps in games such as Team Fortress 2 and Counter-Strike Global Offensive, a simple running platformer and extremely linear generic levels built without a purpose. So with this project I wanted to create a level that was more in keeping with the games I prefer to play, where the player has set goals to achieve, but in an open world where they can choose to get from Objective A to Objective B however they choose and at their own pace. And also to build this world with the purpose of supporting the gameplay and story, rather than just building it because it looks cool. I decided to go with a medieval theme, as it's something I have never approached before in game design. Despite this, I am very familiar with the medieval style through games I've played thoroughly, games such as Skyrim, games in the Witcher series, and Medieval 2 Total War. These games have all influenced design choices throughout the level, and medieval times have also heavily influenced many of my creations in sandbox games such as Minecraft and Terraria. The level starts with the player next to a campfire, waking up to find his companion is missing. Setting off to find them, the player sees a small town which leads up to a castle. Upon arriving at the town, they will see that the town looks to be very run down and poor, despite the castle appearing very extravagant and well kept. The player will then try to enter the town, but will be turned away by the guards. A nearby local farmer tells the player that she saw the guards take a prisoner up to the castle. She also tells the player of a ranger who can help them get inside the town, and says her husband knows where. The player will then travel through the farmland so he can get the location of the ranger. After being told he is in a small cabin in the forest, the player will find the ranger sitting outside his cabin in a clearing. The ranger will then help the player get inside the town and rescue his companion, provided the player helps the ranger fight the injustice going on within the town by stealing items within the castle. After getting inside the town, the player must find a range of objects to help with the rescue and robbery. These items are found throughout the town at key locations, and then the player must meet the ranger near the castle walls. Once at the castle, the player must get inside the castle, steal certain items, escape with his companion underground, then climb up the well inside the castle grounds, then jump out of the castle to a lake down below to safety. As stated before, it was very important to me that the player feels like they are not confined by the objective, so that they have a feeling of choice in how to play the game. Because of this, I added different pathways for the player to choose from in certain sections. For example, the player can choose how to get back to the town after seeing the ranger in the woods, or more importantly, the player can get the items in the town in any order they wish, which gives them the ability to explore the town and be immersed rather than focusing solely on the objective. In an article on bonusstage.com, Tim Spanninx describes that you can use weenies to build anticipation. I have attempted to create this feeling of anticipation in the game's initial moments, giving the player the ability to see the entire world within their field of view, but putting the castle front and center to build anticipation towards the final act of the game. David Shader, a game designer at Naughty Dog, says that the best way to direct a player towards a design goal is to try and shape the world to naturally flow towards the goal. I've done this throughout my level, but mainly in the town and castle areas. Some of the items the player has to collect in the town reside in the blacksmiths and the church. As soon as the player enters the town, they see the church spire and the smoke coming out of the blacksmith's buildings. I use these as weenies so I could direct the player naturally and without the use of arrows and markers on the player's HUD. Emil Glanz, a professional level designer who has worked on AAA titles such as Battlefield 5, talks about the concept of a bounce. He describes a bounce as where the player is tasked with clearing an obstacle at a different portion of the map. This is exactly what I have done at the start of this level, making the player go and find a way to enter the town, which is initially blocked to the player, and this also makes them explore the world. Vignettes have been used as storytelling devices in many popular games to tell a story without the use of words. Dan Taylor explains that this is one of the key principles in level design, as it allows the player to fill in the gap in the story with their own actions and imagination, which is much more rewarding. Skyrim does this expertly. The first time you enter an area, there is often a small scene that plays out, relating to the major storylines within that area. To my knowledge, there are such scenes in each of the 9 major cities throughout the game, thrusting the player to make their own judgment on the events and putting them right into the storylines. I aim to do a similar thing in my game as well, showing that the people of the town are mistreated by the power of the lord in the castle, I've not implemented this into my level blockout as yet, but plan to introduce them as the player nears the town with dead bodies on display. I also want to show the contrast of wealth, with buildings in the lower part of town very poor and barely staying together, with the upper area of town and the castle being fancy, extravagant, and expensive buildings. I wanted to focus a large amount on the castle designs itself, as it is meant to be the main attraction point for the player and is visible throughout the entire level. My plan was to have a castle on the side of a mountain, taking inspiration from Kaer Morhen, a castle seen here in The Witcher 3. The use of multiple levels of walls in the castle was taken from real life. Castles such as the one in Carnarvon in northern Wales have a lower and outer ward. Finally, I wanted a wall around the town to act as a third layer of protection, taking inspiration from the citadels from Medieval 2 Total War, where the outer wall is home to the town whilst having two other levels in the keep itself. I had initially planned to have an extra tower on top of the actual mountain itself with a spiral staircase leading upward, but I changed this when I realized it would clutter the castle too much and removed it. The level blockout, as you can see, is fairly basic. The buildings and pathways are just boxes, really, with only a few things showing any real detail. This is because I ultimately want to make a lot of the assets myself, and I believe I have the time to do it well enough to a point where I can put them in the game. If I do run out of time, there is a lot of medieval assets on the Unreal store that I can use if time is against me towards the end of the project. Also, the cones that you are seeing throughout the level are just placeholders for NPCs or items within the game. The gold ones represent story-based ones, so it includes the items within the town and the farmer and the ranger. The black ones represent an area that you cannot pass unless you've completed a previous checkpoint. So the first one is you won't be allowed to go into the town without speaking to the ranger, and the second one is you can't go up to the castle until you collected all the items within the town.